April from So Local, and today we're making the canvas pencil pouch by Noodlehead. It's a free pattern from their website. The supplies that we need to make the pencil case is outside fabric that is canvas and a contrasting fabric that is canvas as well, some thread, a zipper, and a tassel if you want as a little embellishment, and then we have our interfacing. This is Shapeflex 101. And other things that we need, if you have a zipper foot, that's awesome. If not, you can still put your zipper in anyway. This is called Wonder Tape. It helps put zippers in as well. It's not necessary, but I love it. I use it all the time. And then some scissors, paper scissors, pins, something to mark and measure with, and your pattern. You should have 3 pattern pieces: your exterior main, your exterior accent, and your lining or interior pattern piece. We're just going to cut those out right on the outside line. We're going to cut out our fabric pieces. So you're going to take your piece that says exterior main, and we want to cut 2 of these out, and they have to be reversed. So if we fold it in half like this, it's great because you have to have a front and a back. I'm going to set the interfacing aside for now because we're going to use the sewn together, the pieced outside pieces as our pattern piece for that. But we are going to use our accent piece now, which is right here. And we do need 2 of these. So we're just going to fold that up. And the last pieces that we're going to cut right now are the lining. They need to be cut separately because they're going to be on the fold. So this little symbol here where you have 2 arrows and a line connecting them, sometimes it doesn't even say place on a fold on patterns, but this symbol means to place on a fold. So we take our fabric, fold it so it's big enough to fit the piece, and you're going to line that edge right up on the folded edge of the fabric. And we're not going to cut this so that after we cut this out, it's going to open up and be double the size that it is. Now we're going to take our 2 main outside pieces and our 2 accent pieces and sew them together to make one piece. So we're just going to put these right sides together so that your bottom has the same shape on the opposite end. And we're going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to do the exact same thing to this one. Okay, so we're just going to be sewing right here, and it's really important to try and make your seam allowance 1/2 an inch because that's what the pattern's expecting, and that's going to help it have the right width here. Otherwise, this might not fit with the other fabric that we cut for the inside of the bag. And you're going to want to backstitch at the beginning and backstitch at the end. Now we're just going to press these seams open. So you're going to open this up and iron this flat down. That's one side of our bag. So right now they should be able to fit nicely with the 2 wrong sides together, like this. So as an extra step, I like to go ahead and make a decorative sort of stitch here. It's not necessary, but it also helps keep this folded down so your bag lays nice and flat. So that's going to be 1/8 of an inch on this side of the seam, and then again 1/8 of an inch on this side. And I'm going to lengthen my stitch a little bit here to a 3. And we don't need to backstitch on this one because it's not holding anything together really, and this ends are going to be sewn into the rest of the bag. You can see it kind of gives it more of a professional or a better look. All right, so now we're going to cut out our interfacing. So you should have a piece of this lightweight shape flex. It just helps add a little bit of thickness and stiffness to the bag, so it keeps its shape. This is already a heavier canvas, it's heavier fabric, sorry, it's canvas. So these two together are gonna work great. If you were using a quilting cotton or like a thinner fabric, you would want a different kind of interfacing that's a little bit heavier and thicker. So to make it fit, we're gonna open it up, fold it in half this way, and it should fit just right. We'll just take one of these because this is, we're gonna cut 2 at once. Like this. We'll pin it in place and then just cut out all around the edges here. And one more thing about interfacing, it usually comes in white. This one's black. It's not different in any way. It's just that it's what we happen to have in stock. The lighter ones are for when you're using lighter colored fabrics, but the canvas is so heavy it's not see-through, so it doesn't matter what color you use in the background anyway. Now we're gonna fuse our interfacing onto the backs of these 2 pieces. So on your interfacing, you wanna find the side that's rough, that has glue on it, and that goes towards the back of your fabric. So go in here, and then again, this is the rough side, so we're gonna put that down towards the back. And then I like to iron on top. So I'm just gonna flip these over. And I have my iron set on the cotton fabric setting because this is 100% cotton. And I'm gonna use a little bit of steam and just hold it in place for a few seconds at a time. And it should adhere completely to the back of your fabric. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do with installing the zipper is our zipper is a little bit longer than necessary. So we're gonna trim off the ends here so that you have these little silver pieces right at the end. And this piece will just leave the full length. Okay, so the next step, if you're using this tape, then you put it on the top edge of your fabric. And it's a double-sided sewing tape, so it washes away. And then you peel this paper off and it leaves the tape on there. Then we're gonna put our zipper on. So before we do that, I'm going to fold in the edges towards the back. So you can just fold them in when you place your zipper on. I'm gonna use a bit of fabric glue because it makes it a little bit easier. So we're just gonna fold these down out of the way. Glue's not cooperating, so I'm gonna use a pin. And we're gonna do the same thing on this side here. So my zipper ended up being about 11.5 inches long in the end here. Then we're going to put the top of the zipper lined up with the top of the bag. So the right side of the zipper is facing the right side of the bag. And we're gonna stick that right down along this edge. Then we're gonna take one of our lining pieces and that's gonna go right on top of this layer right here. And I'm going to go ahead and use the tape again. But if you don't have this tape, you can just pin it in place. And then I'm going to use the sticky side and put this covering up everything else. And the zipper's ends are staying folded in between these layers. So then when you look at it, you have your lining, your zipper, and then your outside. So if you open it up, it's gonna look like this. Outside fabric, zipper, and lining. Then we're gonna go to our sewing machine and we're gonna sew all along this edge to hold the zipper in place on that side. So if you had your stitch lengthened earlier, then you're gonna want to bring it back to regular. And I'm going to put a zipper foot on. So you can feel in the fabric there's this lump in the way because of the zipper. And the zipper foot has this cutout area, so it kind of lets you glide closer to the edge of the zipper than a regular sewing foot will. If you don't have a zipper foot, you can move your needle over so that most sewing machines can move the needle. It starts in the center and you can move it to the right or to the left. In this case, I would move it to the left a little bit closer to the fabric, so it's not going to be going over the edge. So for now, we'll just take off the old foot. There we go. And we'll want to back stitch at the beginning and the end here. And we have to make sure that our zipper is opened up about halfway, so it's out of the way. And it might stick a bit if you're using the gluey stuff, so just kind of push it through. And I can feel the zipper pull is here. I'm going to keep my needle in the fabric, lift up the presser foot, and then I'm going to close the zipper. It's a little bit tricky. If it's stuck, you can usually lift up your presser foot a little bit more. So there's having it down and then having it up, and then if you pull up on your presser foot, it will go even higher. Okay, so I have it zipped up now, so the zipper pull is out of my way. So we'll put the presser foot back down and keep going. I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so now we have our zipper, and then we have a nice finished edge on this side here where our lining is, and we have a nice finished edge here as well on the outside. Now we're going to go do the exact same thing to the other side of the zipper. So now we're going to place the top edge of this one attached to here, and I'm going to do it with pins instead of Wonder Tape this time, just to show you what that looks like. So I'll match up the two edges. We also want to make sure, because there's a join here, you want to kind of check it out and make sure it's lining up nicely, so that you're on the other side of the zipper, but it doesn't look like it's over here. It's kind of a continuous seam. So I'm going to put a pin there. I'm going to try to match that up. And now it's time for the lining. That's going to go on the other side of the zipper. And we'll line that up over here, and then we'll add some more pins. Okay, so it's all pinned, and then you can see if you open this up, you have the zipper in between the two good sides, and then here, if you open up the lining, you can see the zipper in here as well. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. And you're just going to remove your pins one at a time as you get to them. And I can feel the zipper pulls here. So again, like last time, we'll lift up our presser foot and move the zipper out of the way. It's kind of hard to see in here. Then I'm just zipping this up right there where we already sewed. Okay. So now we want to have it so that the two lining pieces are like this, lined up with the two top pieces, and we're going to iron them so that they're being pushed away from the zipper. And then we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch just along the two sides of the zipper so that the lining and the outside fabric are being held together. And then the same thing back here, we want to iron it to make sure that none of the fabric is kind of caught in between here. So you're pulling it away from the zipper. All right, now we'll go top stitch. Okay, so we're gonna put our normal foot back on. If you didn't and you moved your needle over, you're gonna wanna put it back to the middle now. And I'm going to lengthen my stitches again to 3. And this is gonna be in the way. I'm just gonna pull it so it's halfway open for now. And before I start sewing, I just wanna make sure that this edge is lined up pretty good from front to back. I'm actually gonna throw a pin in there just so it stays in place. And we're sewing about 1/8 of an inch in here. Now I'm getting close to this, so we're just gonna lift that up, zip it closed so it's out of the way. And before I come all the way down to this end, I'm gonna pin the bottom together here just to make sure they stay nice and lined up. There's one side. We're gonna do the same thing to the other side now. Our next step is to open up the zipper halfway. Then we're gonna take the 2 outside pieces and join them together and lay them out so that we have our 2 inside pieces on one side and our 2 outside pieces on the other. Then we're gonna start pinning these edges together. So I'm lining these up. I'm going to take a minute now to mark a 4-inch opening in the bottom of the lining. That's how we're going to turn our bag the right way out. So you can use whatever kind of marking tool you have, and just somewhere around the center, and it should be on this long bottom edge of the bag that's going to be on the inside. So this is the no sew zone in here. So we're going to be sewing the bag from one of our marked points right to this edge, and then picking up over on this edge, sewing to here, starting here, going all the way across, and then here, all the way down to the bottom here. So basically we're leaving the 4 corners open, and we're leaving an opening here in the no sew zone that we marked. We'll finish pinning the sides now. So you have your zipper, it's kind of a lump here, and we're gonna leave that all facing down towards the inside of the bag, which is the yellow lining fabric. I'm just gonna put a pin on either side. And then we'll do that again on this side. We wanna make sure that this end of the zipper here is all kind of pinched down into this yellow part of the bag here, the lining. You can see it there. Okay, so we have our no sew zone, leaving the corners all open, and we're gonna use a 1/2-inch seam allowance. So I'm putting my stitch length back to normal, and we're going to go for 1/2 inch, and we wanna make sure to backstitch. When you're going over this lump, just go nice and slow, and make sure to keep that same seam allowance, and you're following, it's not a straight line here, it kind of comes in and then goes back out. Okay, now we get to take out our pins. And then we're gonna trim our seam allowance down in half so there's not as much bulk inside. When you get to this part that you're leaving unsewn right now, that we left unsewn, you're not gonna trim your seam allowance there. You should be able to cut through the zipper. If it's giving you a really hard time, it might be because there's one of the metal pieces underneath. So don't try and cut that. You don't want to ruin your scissors. Just cut a little bit farther out for that part. Now we're gonna do what's called box corners. Before we do that, I'm gonna put my hand in the opening that we left and try and wiggle the zipper open the rest of the way. It's a little bit tricky, but it can be done. Okay, so to make box corners, we're gonna go to these little corners that we left open, and we're just gonna join the two seams like this. And then you'll see it's a kind of this flat opening right here. We're gonna pin this together. I'm just gonna open these two seams up like this and put a couple of pins here. And then at our sewing machine, we sew right across here following this raw edge of fabric, about 1/2 inch in, and that's gonna give the bottom of the bag some shape. And we're gonna do that on all the corners. So you line it up so you're looking at these two seams, pull your fabric apart until your seams meet up together. And then I like to open this up right here so it's flat, and then pin it together. And then this is all the inside of the bag. Now we're gonna do the same thing to the outside fabric. If you have wonder clips, you can just clip these as well. Okay, there we go. So now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and sew those 4 corners. Make sure to backstitch at the end. We're gonna trim our seam allowance in half. And now we're gonna turn the bag right side out through the hole that we left. So I'm poking out, I have it inside out right now, just to kind of get these corners out properly and make sure that there's no holes or any missed spots. And then we'll turn it the right way. So we do have this one hole that we left on purpose. So you can kind of put your hand inside of there to make sure that you're getting the corners poked out all the way. We're almost done. You can use a stick or a pencil, something to poke out the top corners too, where the zipper is. Okay, so now we need to sew up this hole that we left. I'm just gonna do it on the sewing machine. You can do it by hand as well. But it's in the bottom of the bag and it's nice and fast to do it on the machine, so we'll do it like that. So we're just gonna pinch these together with the raw edges tucked towards the inside. And I'm gonna throw a couple of pins in here so it stays together nicely when we're sewing. And you'll make sure that you start a little bit up from where the hole is, backstitch, so all the way along. And again at the end, go a little bit past where the hole is and backstitch again. And we're gonna have a nice small seam allowance on here. We'll go for about 1/8. And then we just tuck that inside. now we're just going to add a little tassel on the end because it's cute. And we'll just use some of the regular all-purpose thread that you had in your sewing machine. And I'm going to thread it through the tassel. And we'll thread it through the zipper end. And then I'm going to do just a little double knot to hold that in place. And I leave it a little bit loose. Like I didn't put the knot all the way to the end so it can kind of hang. And then the second knot, because I want it to find where the other knot was, I'm going to do it more like when we're tying our shoes. Like that. And then we'll just trim that off. And there we go.